Something's wrong here. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, and today I'm very excited to do my first book review. I already made a couple of videos in the past where I talk more or less extensively about the books that I have that help me in my research and in my practice, but I never really took the time to really delve into one of these books specifically and talk about them. So this is what I want to do today. In this video I'll be talking about this book titled Hausgeister, Household Spirits of German Folklore, or in its German title Hausgeister, fast vergessene Gestalten der deutschsprachigen Märchen- und Sagenwelt. Before we start, I should mention that I am not paid by the people who created this book. I'm doing this out of my own volition, so this is not intended to be an ad. This is just my opinions, thoughts, and feelings about this book. Let's start off by giving some more facts of what this is actually really about. Because this is not just a book detailing German folklore that has something to do with household spirits. This book delves deeper into this topic with explaining what types of household spirits there are, what their relationship is to each other, where their folklore emerged, and which is maybe the main selling point of this book, is that each type of household spirit, which is discussed in here, comes with pictures of models of said household spirits. And the models in here have been created based on the folkloric descriptions of these spirits. In total, there are 5 household spirits in this book, which are being discussed in depth. And they would be the Kobold, the Wichtel, the Drack, the 𝔖𝔨𝔢𝔫𝔨𝔢𝔫, and the Geldmännlein. Since the description of these spirits varies so widely across regions, there are usually many different types of models for one singular house spirit entity. What I also like is that these models don't exist in a vacuum. They are being shown getting up to some shenanigans or helping out the people of the household or generally doing spirit stuff. And I feel like through that you don't just get a feeling of these spirits, but also the environment that they were believed to exist in and the time period in which many of these stories were collected and recorded. One of my favorite spirits in here is the 𝔖𝔨𝔢𝔫𝔨𝔢𝔫. There's a lot of folklore in the place in 𝔨𝔨𝔫𝔨𝔫 where my family is from that mentions this type of spirit, so I felt like through this book I did not only get more information on what this spirit is all about, but also I could kind of envision them better, or at least what some people thought they look like. The main person standing behind the creation of these models is Florian Schäfer, who I believe is also the person who is behind the Forgotten Creatures brand. And if that's true, I also think that I have talked to him before. Initially, when I ordered this book, there was some shipping issues, so I contacted the business email of that brand and was like, hey, something seems to have gotten lost somewhere down the line. What about my order? And Florian Schäfer himself answered me personally while he was on vacation and got my order sorted out. So a huge thank you to him for that. The other 2 main forces behind this book are Janine Pisarek and Hannah Gritsch. According to the book, Janine comes from an academic background studying cultural studies and someone who's also in the same field at university. This was kind of like the first big green flag for me to actually go and buy this book. And then Hannah Gritsch is the photographer that brought the models by Florian kind of to life. I do really like the pictures and all of the images and models that are in this book, but for me as a boring academic, the most exciting part was the articles and all of the information that was in here concerning the folk spirits. Initially, I thought that the big focus was just going to be on the pictures and the photography, and that the research in this book would kind of be mediocre and not really anything groundbreaking or anything that I hadn't heard before. But when I looked at the list of authors whose articles are featured in here, like for example Rudolf Simek, I started to realize that this book was going to have a lot more like meat on his bones, academic meat on his bones, meat of knowledge. Maybe not describe it like that. I really like that this book did not take a new agey route where things would be described a bit less clear and a bit more occult, and with little to no reflection on what this belief in household spirits would actually mean for a society, what kind of impacts the environment had on these folk tales, and generally what life back then would have been and how all of that interconnects. But as I said, I quickly realized that this book did in fact go there, which to some might not be as exciting, but for me it definitely was. I mean, I could take this book and use it in an academic setting. Everything is very well researched. There's a huge bibliography that I think I would use in some academic papers. And besides that, the texts in here manage to be both scientific without being dry to read. And as someone who frequently sifts through many academic articles about this topic, this book was kind of refreshing. Now, there are multiple sections about this book. First, we get to know each of these 5 house spirits that I mentioned already. And what I especially like about these sections is that they come with maps of Germany with regional names for the spirits discussed being overlaid on that map. So you can make out what a 𝔖𝔭𝔬𝔢𝔨𝔬𝔫𝔨𝔶𝔨𝔢𝔫 would typically be called, for example, in central Germany or northern Germany or western Germany. And through these maps, I even found more folklore pertaining to my specific region, which for me is like a testament to the amount of research that went into this book, because rarely my region is being discussed when we talk about German folklore. It's mostly always focused on either central or southern German folklore, but not so often on northern or northwestern German folklore. So the fact that I found local folklore about household spirits from my region, which I, by the way, did not know about before, was really a kind of eye-opening moment. And by the way, if you're curious, the household spirits of my region which are being mentioned in this book are called 𝔖𝔭𝔬𝔢𝔨𝔢𝔫𝔨𝔄𝔬𝔢𝔄𝔬𝔢𝔬𝔢𝔬𝔢𝔬𝔢𝔬𝔢𝔬𝔢𝔬𝔢𝔬𝔢𝔬𝔢𝔬𝔢𝔬𝔢𝔬𝔢𝔬𝔢𝔬𝔢𝔬𝔢𝔬𝔢𝔬𝔢𝔬𝔢𝔬𝔢𝔬𝔢𝔬𝔢𝔬𝔢𝔬𝔢𝔬𝔢𝔬𝔢𝔬𝔢𝔬𝔢𝔬𝔢𝔬𝔢𝔬𝔢𝔬𝔢𝔬𝔢𝔬𝔢𝔬𝔢𝔬𝔢𝔬𝔢𝔬𝔢𝔬𝔢𝔬𝔢𝔬𝔢𝔬𝔢𝔬 book is more about the concept of household spirits in Germany as a whole. There are 6 academic articles in total that tackle this topic. And what I really appreciated is that they do that from multiple different angles. One article is more about written historical evidence of these beings, then the concept of household spirit folklore in general is discussed, and even psychological aspects that play into folklore are being looked at. One of the only downsides about this book that I had is that it comes in a really weird format, I feel like. It's kind of awkward to hold, especially because the text is so far apart on each page, so you really have to turn your head while reading this, and this is definitely not like bedside literature. So holding this book while reading is really a pain in the ass, and I ended up just laying it flat out on the table and kind of looking down on it, which after a while can get really uncomfortable in the neck, so that's that. I don't know why they chose this format, but I refuse to believe that there is no better way to showcase both the text and the pictures. But besides that, I'm really happy that I got this book. I also really like that it is both available in English and German. So all of you who are maybe from the US and watch my videos trying to connect back to German folk magic, you can also buy this book and read it and don't have to rely on things like Google Translate. And honestly, I wish that there were more books out there that tackled things in German folklore in such a easy to understand but also academically sound way. So I do think that I would recommend this book. But do keep in mind that this is not a witchcraft-centric book. This book is not written for witches. So yeah, I'm happy to have this, and I do know that in I think 2 months there will be another book by the same people out detailing folk spirits which exist outside of the household, so I'm also really looking forward to that. And with that, we come to my Patreon shoutouts. So shout out to 𝔖𝔬𝔢𝔨𝔢𝔫𝔨𝔢𝔯, shout out to Brian and Rini, shout out to Kelsey Kramer and Kate and Renegarb, and shout out to Hexenheim, Megan, and Willow Rose Witch. And with that, I wish you a great rest of your day, and Lori wat goed gaan.